What's going on, everybody? Kasabe here, and today's tutorial is how to make curved or slanted text in the logo editor. So as you can see here, I have a commission that I completed for somebody else, and you kind of get that slanted, curved at the bottom but still flat on the top feel for the logo itself. And I've done a few of these over the last few months, and this is the method that I've found to work the best for doing such letters. So I do want to clarify before I get started that this method uses quite a bit of the mask and skew tools, which may be more difficult for beginners or people who haven't been acquainted with the logo editor for very long. So I'll try and make this as simple as possible. I grouped my layers and everything into building blocks, and I can kind of explain from there on out my methods on how I made these. First, as long as I have it up here, I'll show you guys that I have the mask set for each letter. So if there's one letter that somewhere in the future you think looks a little bit off, you can go back to that specific letter and maybe tweak it just a little bit. The other thing I'll show you here is this mask layer right here, which is going to flash there. So you can see I have one at the bottom here for the curvature, and then to get the slant on the left and right sides of the end of the shape, I have the mask on the opposing sides here. But by and large, all you do is just have a few square shapes like this and masking around it to form letters. But I only have a few of these square shapes. I have the orange, the black, and the gray for each layer of the outlines. If you really want to get fancy with it, you can kind of do the two-tone colors like I have here. What you're going to want first is one of your colors that you're going to be using. I'll just use black for the purpose of this video. All right, so you have a flat rectangle like so, and the next step is to use a circle or this half dome shape to cut the bottom. For all of the masks in my design, I typically use a color that I know isn't going to look anything like the other colors that I have in the design. So most typically that's going to be pink, but I've used lime green. Think of something that's like a complete opposite of one of the colors that you're going to use for your actual design. And then you're going to just kind of put this half dome shape at the very bottom of this rectangle so it envelops the corners and kind of gives it a look like this. Next, depending on the angle of the lettering that you want to do, you'll do the exact same thing but with these square pieces, and you're going to tilt them to the corner that you just created in the bottom left and the bottom right. So you can do the tilt like here, or if you want something that's a little bit more straight, you can also go a bit straighter like so. Whatever angle you decide to go with to keep it consistent on both sides, hit the stamp or copy tool. It's going to be square on PlayStation. Create the same exact shape, go to more options, and horizontal flip. Now what you're going to want with this shape is to put it in the exact same place as the other side, which you should be able to just get to the corner here, and you can kind of see how I'm like getting just close enough where it touches the very tip of the corner, and there we go. Now we have our tilted text here for the building block of what we're going to make next. Now the next part, you're going to do the exact same thing if you're doing an outline. Just take this black square right here, let's make it a red outline here, and you're just going to scale it enough where you get the desired thickness of what you want your outline to be at the very top. Go over to your mask tool once again, copy that using the stamp tool, and put that in front of the red layer. If you use the rotate and scale, you should be able to just ever so gently put it on the D-pad so it matches the outline here. You might have to move a few shapes, or if you need to, just make the shape a little bit wider. So this one I need a little bit more space on the right. I'm going to use my D-pad to make the rectangle just a bit wider over there. And there we go. Now we have the inner color, which is black, and the outer color outline, which is red. Now the next step is whatever text you're going to make, you're going to space that out using the mask tool. I would use a different color just to signify that this is a different type of mask if you need to go back and edit things later. So this will be for the spacing of the letters. I'm going to make the word test, which is 4 letters, and I'm going to use these mask tools here to divvy the canvas into 4 different shapes. They don't all need to be the same size. There are some letters that are going to be a little bit thicker than others. So for example, if you have something that uses the letter I, that's going to be a lot thinner than the rest. But what you're going to want is to kind of use these mask tools and eye it out until you get 4 very similarly shaped pieces. All right, now that you've got your letters spaced out, now you're going to actually form your letters. So the T might be one of the easier ones here. You can just kind of take these and piece together the T. There's going to be a lot of empty space here, which if you really wanted to, you can mask out later. And as I mentioned earlier, this may involve some usage of the skew tool just to make the letters themselves look a little bit tilted as well. So if you kind of look at the top of the T that I have right here, I'm going to switch over to the skew tool, and then just ever so slightly using the skew tool, I'm going to pull down on the D-pad or analog stick and give it a little bit of a slant here. Ideally what you're going to want is to try and match the angle of the half dome or circle that you created at the bottom. And again, that might involve a little bit more just kind of eyeing it out, getting a feel for it. When using the skew tool, it's going to be very consequential that you don't skew the x-axis and only do the y-axis. Otherwise, what you're going to get is a bit of a slanted trunk of like the T here. So very carefully make sure that the x-axis is as close to 0.00 as possible. So now we have our letter T, and if you have letters that are on the exact polar opposites of each end, you can actually group those shapes together, horizontal flip them, and just move them right over to the other side of the canvas here. And now we have two very similar letter T's. For the letter E, we're just going to do a couple of rectangular boxes like so. And again, you can curve the text by using this tool right here. So it kind of gives it a little bit more of a 3D effect. All right, and now the last part is for any letters that have any curves in them, you're going to mostly want to use this kind of toenail looking shape right here, or these kind of half loop shapes. You can use these to round off the edges. So for the letter S, I'm going to take off the corner right here while also not trying to get too much into the letter E here. So to get the perfect curves, what you're going to want is for the tips of this shape right here to match as evenly at a 90-degree angle for both the top and the sides as possible. So you can see the one here at the bottom, matching it up almost perfectly with that line. And then the one at the top here, same deal, without it bleeding into the shape there. I think we got it pretty flush. If there is a little bit of extra at the top, just copy that shape, move it up just a little bit. So again, if you want to kind of keep the consistency, you can borrow certain elements from other letters and put them on the other side using the flip tool. So for instance, the letter S kind of has a part cutting into it similar to the letter E. We're going to copy stamp this, go to horizontal flip, and just deposit it right about there. We're also going to put it over here at the top of the S, and then we're going to finish up the curves by copying these and putting them around the rest of the edges of the S. Again, you can group things by certain letters, just so if you need to go back and tweak something for later, you can do so. But here's our very kind of rudimentary 3D text for now. There's a few more things you can do to make it look even cleaner. So for example, if you want the red to kind of match the black in this certain design, copy this mask over here, and you can kind of resize these elements here to just get the outlines and still keep the 3D feel. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of this design here. With the outlines, you're going to have to do a couple more steps just to make it look really clean. So for the example of the S at the top of the screen here, I'm going to use a right triangle to finish this little part right here that's sticking out to get as flat of a 90 angle with the E as possible. And then between the E and the S, we're going to get rid of this little red part right here. Use this same triangle to keep it consistent down here. Alright, so there's our logo, and looking at it, there are some things we could do to clean up the design. I'm doing this entirely without any references, so if you have a reference, it's going to be a lot easier to visualize some shapes of what you might want to do. Just know that the more letters you do, the more work it's going to take, the more difficult it might be to kind of space out the letters and keep them consistent sizes. Generally, the longer the text that you have, the more stretched out you're going to have the rectangle here. So mine's still pretty square here, but if I had more letters, I would have to really stretch it out this way. There's a couple other things I can offer in terms of making your design look cleaner, and I'm going to give a few examples here. So the first is sometimes with these designs you can do little kind of carrots just to give it a little bit more of a defined edge. So in between like the E and the S here, I'm going to put this little triangle here, maybe another one over here. And that's just going to make it look a tad more 3D than normal. And you can kind of already see just by adding those few triangles at the bottom, it gives that bottom layer a little bit more of a defined 3D edge, kind of makes it pop off the canvas a little bit more. So the last thing you can do to add a little bit more 3D effects to your text here is to take one last shape or color and add it to the bottom here. Make a rectangle like the first time, but very thin, like so. Make sure it envelops all of your text. Make another pink shape or whatever color you're using as a reference. And now what you're going to want to do is take the little loops that you made at the bottom here with the triangles and use them as a point of reference for where the shapes begin and end. Basically just put them at the same angle as the triangles that you just created. You can also get the edges over here for the T. Use the skew tool to again match the same angle. If you need to use a couple shapes to do this, that's fine too. Alright, so there we have our T here. So now we just added a little 3D effect to the other side of the canvas here. You don't necessarily have to do this for all the letters. You can just do it on both edges. Maybe just add a few shapes in the middle. This is all kind of extra, but if you want to use the square tool and the skew tool, if you're comfortable with it, you can add a little bit more 3D effects to your logos here. But there we have it. There is our test logo. We added some 3D effects to both the bottom and sides, but also a bit of a curvature to the bottom and a slant to kind of give it that pop once you put it on the jerseys. I'm going to delete my white layer here and let's actually see what it looks like on the player. There's an option for this in the menu that says show player. And there you go. You get some really cool looking kind of like a brick effect on the front of your jerseys. Now that we have the final product, we built it from scratch. I'm just going to once again go through all of the different steps. You're going to make a couple different colored rectangle shapes like here. You have the red and the black that we did. Lop off the sides and the bottom to make them curved at the angle that you want. Space out your letters using the mask tool here. Generally, you're going to want each letter to be about the same size. Then mask the letters themselves to form the shapes that you want. You can go for a little bit more of a blocky style. You can use a lot more curves to make them more of a rounded feel. And for some extra 3D effects, you can use the skew tool just with some regular square shapes to add something at the bottom or sides of your letters. Oh, and if you wanted to do that two-tone thing that I showed at the beginning of the video, just copy one entire layer like so and paste it. Just change one of these colors to the secondary that you want. So like if we wanted a lighter gray, you can either take a square or a half dome like we used earlier, give it a mask, and cut your design in half. That will conclude today's logo tutorial on how to make 3D curved or slanted text. As always, if you have any questions on how to do something mentioned in this video, feel free to let me know in the comments. Or if there's anything else that you'd like me to show you how to do for logo tips in general, just let me know. I'd be happy to help you guys out. Once again, this is Kasabe. Thank you so much for watching the video today. We'll see you in the next logo tutorial video.